Story mode has reset once again, rolling over on the 30th of June, 1 day shy of the July month reset. We got 30 days and 23 hours, so now is one of the best times every single month to transcend or tier 3 specific characters in order to ensure that you can get more fragments so that you can combine them to get more boxes so that you can combine them to get more good rewards like those and others. So who is most used this month in the story mode fragment farming? Well, that's why we have the mega guides. So take a look at the mega guides, the third tab over from the tier list. We have the July characters, and we're going to go through the list now and highlight the ones that are featured multiple times, and then we're going to talk briefly about the best teams to cover up the sort of weak stages where a character that maybe is not strong enough or doesn't have the right damage type would otherwise be going first and being the sort of the leader and the damage dealer. So we got Adam Warlock and Arrow here, Ant-Man and Chavez, Cho showing up not once, not twice, but thrice. So 3 showings for Cho. So maybe you want to shore up your build for him if it's bad, because he is the leader on 10-2, I believe, and possibly on 1-1. But if you don't have Amadeus Cho, now would be a pretty decent time to transcend him. Then we got Beta Ray Bill and Blade making a show up here, Blue Dragon, Cable, and then for the first time, I think ever, Captain America featured 5 times. I think this is the first time we've ever seen a character featured 5 times. I could not believe my eyes. He's featured on 12-1. He's featured on 12-2. He's featured so damn often that if you don't have him tier 3, you absolutely must. Look at this. He had only been featured 25 times up until now. And story mode fragment farming, I believe, started in February of 2021 or something like that. But it's been a long time, basically. It's been like 2 years plus. So he had only been featured 25 times. And now that's going up to 30. Insane. Absolutely insane for Captain America. The other Captain Americas each get 1 showing apiece. Carnage, Kalia, Colossus. 2 for Corvus Glaive, which sucks a little bit as a native tier 2, but hey, it is what it is. Daredevil, Dr. Octopus. Double for Dormammu. Double for Electro. We've seen a lot of doubles for Electro lately. A bunch of 1s here. Then we got a double for Iron Hammer. He's also the lead on 13-1, which we'll get to a little bit later. Double for Jane Foster Thor, which is kind of nice because she's a solid tier 3 with a good support that people forget about. A triple for Molecule Man. This one I think sucks the most out of any of the other characters featured multiple times. Molecule Man is probably still one of the most, if not the most expensive character in the game. And he had only been featured 16 times up until now. So to see that number rise by about a 5th is pretty brutal, or maybe like a 6th. Anyways, yeah, 3 stages, 2-1, 5-1, 8-3. These are all in the first set of fragments for the Dimensional Clash, but these are all important missions in my opinion. Everything after like 1-3, it's kind of hard to farm. You can never have enough, essentially, of them. So yeah, might need a tier 3 Molecule Man after all here, but I would do everybody else first. Then 2 for Sam Alexander Nova. 2 for Polaris, 2 for Scream, which is nice, 2 for Sif, a bunch of 1s for characters like Thena. 2 for Thena. What was it? What were all these 1s here? Sunbird, Supergiant, Swordmaster. My bad. 2 for Thena, 2 for Thor, 2 for Titania. So all the T's get their 2s. And then a bunch of 1s here at the end with Wave, White Fox, Wolverine, and X-23 rounding out the list. So I would say it's a pretty decent month. We don't have a lot of 3s. We don't have any 4s. So there's a lot of like value spread across your roster. However, Molecule Man really hurts. And although Captain America doesn't hurt, it's a shocker. It's a shocker to see 5. 5 is pretty insane. I had to double check it before I made the video because I was like, wow, that's a lot of Captain Americas. So going back to the story mode now, we're going to take a look at a couple of stages here where you may have some issues with particular characters in the leadership position. So 7-3 is the first one here. Wave in the leadership position could be an issue, especially if you've just built her or barely built her as a support with like, an insight. So you may want to consider, putting her to the left or to the right on your team composition where Namor or Professor X would be. That's the first stage. Also keep in mind 7-3 is the farming stage if you want to farm lots of bios, because it's a really fast stage where you just fight a Red Skull boss and then you fight an Ultron boss, so you can usually complete the stage in under 30 seconds. So what you can do is you can just auto repeat the 1 stage over and over again to grind bios if that's something that you really need. Something to keep in mind here. The next problematic character potentially, I mean, we did mention Amadeus Cho on 10-2. So that may be up to your build. I think he's good enough to do it, but again, it depends on your build for him, so you do need to keep track of that a little bit. Maybe just watch how he plays there. It can be a little bit tricky at the end versus Maximus. And then on 12-1, we have Captain America. So yeah, Captain America being featured 5 times this month isn't a bad thing, but when he's featured after getting his Back to Basics uniform in a game mode or in this stage here where you need elemental damage, you have to change his uniform. So you have 2 options. You either put him on the left or the right, like Namor and Professor X, or you swap his uniform back to the Phoenix Force uniform. Okay, if you swap him back to the Phoenix Force uniform, he does almost exclusively elemental damage, and then he'll be fine to carry you through this 12-1 stage. And it's still a good uniform for all intents and purposes. It's just something to keep in mind that you have to swap him over to. And I honestly would, because the other 2 options on this stage, Colossus and Dormammu, they kind of suck. So yeah, that's the 12-1 that you need to look out for. And then finally we come to, oh, actually 8-2. I missed the stage here before we get to the final one here. 8-2 is Destroyer. Now, maybe some of your Destroyers can clear this stage solo. Maybe some of yours can't. There's a lot of mobs on 8-2. It's the antimatter recovery, bomb diffusing one. So I would probably recommend moving the Destroyer to the left or to the right to allow Namor to become the lead who can just shred through that content. And then last but not least, on 13-1, you have Iron Hammer. Now, the list is pretty brutal. It's Iron Hammer, Daredevil, and Invisible Woman. I don't know if Iron Hammer is worse than Invisible Woman, but at the very least, he doesn't have a uniform. So that's less stats for him, less defenses, etc. So I would say maybe consider putting him to the left or the right, or putting either Daredevil or Invisible Woman, whichever one has a better build, putting them in the leadership position. Therefore, I think the best autoplay team for all of the stages this month looks something like this right here. We take away Wave and we take away Destroyer from those missions 7-3 and 8-2 to ensure that they're not in the leadership position. Wave moves over to allow Carnage to be the lead, and Destroyer moves over to allow Namor to be lead. And then here I'm using Invisible Woman instead of Iron Hammer. Now, if your Iron Hammer is good enough to do this stage and not die, then you have a free spot open. You don't have to use Invisible Woman there in the lead. Then you could go to some other stage that you think is problematic, and you could put in a different lead. For example, if your Amadeus Cho is struggling massively, then what you could do here instead of putting Invisible Woman, if your Iron Hammer can clear it, is you could put let's say Magneto in the lead. And then Magneto will take over on 10-2, Iron Hammer takes over on 13-1, and you're laughing, and you're sitting pretty. But it genuinely depends on what you have there. Secondly, if you don't, the only other issue you're going to run into is if you don't have Captain America's Phoenix Force uniform at all, but you have him tier 3, that sucks. I wouldn't say to buy the uniform, particularly for this piece of content this month. But then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to either swap out Colossus's uniform for his old Phoenix 5 if you do have that one, or you're going to need to use Dormammu. Now, you can't really use Dormammu without his uniform. He's not good enough. With his uniform, I think he is good enough, albeit slow. But then again, that's something you need to cover for yourself and sort of test for yourself if that's an issue that your roster specifically has. So yeah, that's it for this month's story mode fragment farming. I think the stages are pretty solid otherwise. There's lots of strong characters in the lead, so you don't have to worry too much about babysitting bad characters like Clea and Caecilius. And 13-3 has Supergiant in the lead, who should be fine one-shotting Thanos there, like sort of revenge on her former boss. So that's pretty cool. Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of this month's story mode fragment farming. Good luck with your fragment farming. Hopefully you get lots of premium rewards, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.